our working conditions are their kids' conditions. So whatever we're out here fighting for affects the students as well.
More than 170,000 students in Toronto were not in class today as elementary school teachers hit the picket lines, kicking off a week of rotating strikes. For the first time in more than 2 decades, all of Ontario's teachers' unions have combined forces. Shannon Martin joins us live now with more. And Shannon, today's strike, though, was a first.
Right, a first for elementary school teachers. Teachers and the union today saying they had no choice but to take this step. Parents we talked to said, look, it is inconvenient, but for them, they said it is necessary. It's about fighting to protect the quality of their kids' education.
2, 4, 6, 8. We are here to demonstrate.
Out of the classroom and on the picket line.
Well, we're freezing, so if anyone thinks we're out here for 1%, I can tell them they're wrong, because I would rather be in my nice warm classroom with my students.
Back to the table. Fair deal now.
Parents wanting to show support brought snacks, signs, and their kids.
We want to stand up for teachers.
4-year-old Oliver Yang spent the day helping out at his dad's bike shop.
Scanning data.
An inconvenience, Dad admits, but not impossible.
It's a little more relaxed setting as opposed to being in an office. But at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, obviously contingency plans need to be in place to make sure that I can function at work as well as have him here.
We got it, everyone. Let's move it.
Let's go.
North of the junction, inside a Buddhist temple, a low-cost pop-up day camp. Organized to ease pressure off parents who had no other childcare options and offer teachers a place to warm up.
What kind of message are you hoping the teachers take from that, knowing that you've gone to this length to show them how much support there is?
We hope it gives them the strength to carry on and keep fighting the fight.
As a parent, what are the big issues in all of this?
We have seen cuts to our music department. We've seen an increase in class sizes in grades 4 and 5. And so, yeah, it hurts.
The Elementary Teachers Federation Union says it was forced to start rotating one-day strikes at elementary schools after weeks without talks.
The proposals we have on the table that are important are a commitment from this government to full-day kindergarten and a teacher and a designated early childhood educator in that program, fair and transparent hiring practices for our occasional teachers.
The one issue that they choose not to talk about on their list is an issue that I believe is fundamental to their position on compensation.
Ontario's education minister says the sticking point is salaries.
1%, a $750 million increase, we believe is fair. And I appreciate that they will like 100% more of that, another $750 million. That's a sector-wide impact. And I believe that's unreasonable to the taxpayer.
Dwight, we asked the union today, could we see more of these rotating strikes? Could they even potentially drag on from one day into weeks? A lot of parents wondering that. The union wouldn't go there today, though, saying now it's in the hands of the province. What we do know is elementary school teachers across the province all week will stage one-day strikes. Right now, there are no talks scheduled.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question to you, Shannon. Other teachers will be joining in this later this week, no?
That's right. So some high school teachers tomorrow will stage a one-day strike, as well as English Catholic teachers as well. That's all happening on Tuesday. So by the end of the week, many of the province's 2 million students will be feeling the impact along with their families. Dwight.
Thank you, Shannon. Countries around the world, including Canada, are on heightened alert tonight for a new SARS-like virus that's circulating in parts of Asia, and the number of cases has spiked over the weekend. The new coronavirus was first confirmed in Wuhan, China, in late December. Since then, cases have popped up throughout China, including in the capital, Beijing. It also made its way to Thailand, Japan, and South Korea. 217 cases have now been confirmed. So far, 3 deaths are being attributed to this virus. Now, coronaviruses are a form of a large family of viruses that cause illnesses ranging from the common cold to more severe diseases. They're transmitted between animals and people. Signs of infection include respiratory symptoms, fever, cough, and breathing difficulties. Included in the coronavirus family is severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS. SARS began in China in November 2002. Cases of SARS soon began popping up around the world, eventually leading to 800 deaths. Toronto was on the front lines in the battle against SARS. By the time it was over, it had killed 44 people in Canada, most of them in our city. Alicia Son has been looking into how experts are tracking this new potential threat.
The epicenter for the novel coronavirus is Wuhan, a city in central China. More specifically, a fresh food market. Patient 0 likely contracted the virus from an animal almost 3 weeks ago. But now we've entered a new phase, human-to-human transmission.
People are investigating this closely. People are working hard at getting us data. The critical issue now is understanding where this comes from and whether there's enough human-to-human transmission to sustain this virus in human populations.
To stop the spread of disease is also to track the spread of it.
I'm an infectious disease physician and the founder and CEO of Blue Dot. We are working specifically on better ways to detect and respond to emerging infectious disease threats like the one we're seeing here play out right in front of our eyes.
Khan's team uses AI to aggregate on-the-ground reports of the illness, and they're tracking flights in real time.
So we're in a world today where people can easily jump on a plane and go halfway around the world in, a matter of hours.
And while there are no direct flights from Ground Zero in Wuhan,
we are also just at the precipice of the Lunar New Year, when we're anticipating there will be a mass number of mass migration of people and gatherings and congregations where this disease could potentially propagate.
we learned today that already 3 Canadians have been screened for potentially having novel coronavirus infections, but they've since been cleared. Still, though, the question looms. Could we see it spread here as badly as its coronavirus cousin, SARS?
SARS had a mortality rate somewhere around 10%. In this instance, we have 3 observed deaths out of a few hundred confirmed cases. So I think it still remains to be seen. Is this as deadly as SARS, or is this going to be a milder illness?
Of the 40 people who died during the SARS outbreak, some were healthcare workers. And in the case of a similar outbreak, containment is going to start on the front lines.
We need to make sure that this intelligence is reaching the front lines, so our healthcare workers can protect themselves, they can protect the patients, they can protect their hospitals from dangerous outbreaks. And in fact, we often don't think about this, but frontline healthcare workers are the ones who are protecting our cities from dangerous outbreaks.
Public health agencies are reminding people of the basic preventative measures like washing your hands and to tell doctors or nurses of your travel history at any hospitals or clinics you take yourself to. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
All our 911 call takers are still busy at this time.
911, pick up!
He's following a suspected drunk driver and did what you're supposed to do, call 911. But he says he was put on hold for 6 minutes. More on that coming up in less than 6 minutes. Colette, my neighbors were bugging me on the weekend saying, Dwight, I was watching the show and I think you guys didn't say this much snow was coming. Did we get more than expected?
No, we were pretty, it just seems like it sometimes when it's on your driveway, I think, Dwight, right? You got to clear it away. Yeah, we were right in that target there. We were just under 20 centimeters and we were saying as the storm got closer, 15 to 20, it was starting to look like for the GTA. So yeah, maybe a few centimeters more than some thought, but it was pretty much on target. And then the cold air in place, right? Well, let's look at where we're at now. We're moving towards seasonal, so temperatures coming back closer to seasonal, and then we're going to be going ahead of the game. So if we look at the 7-day temperature trend moving forward, Tuesday brings us kind of back to where we should be. There's our average high for this time of year, and then we get to go up here with temperatures. These are daytime highs, not overnight lows, but daytime temperatures there sitting a little bit above freezing. So for now, we're below it. -6 is where the temperature is at the moment, and it feels like -11. So we do have one more cold night, not as cold as what it was last night, but still a very cold night ahead with those northwesterly breezes bringing a few flurries, more than that around in the lee of Lake Huron, but some of those flurries making their way into the GTA off and on as possible. They'd be widely scattered. But otherwise tonight we'll look for partly cloudy skies, -11, feeling like -15. That kind of holds into the early morning hours tomorrow, and then we climb to -2 in the afternoon. We'll start with sun and then more clouds build in, but there's lots of sunshine for Wednesday to go with those milder temperatures. More on that coming up, Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
Newfoundland remains under a state of emergency following that unprecedented snowstorm on Friday. 300 Canadian Armed Forces personnel are in the province to assist with the cleanup, and more are expected to arrive tomorrow. In the meantime, residents have been ordered to stay off the roads, and schools and most businesses must stay closed, but grocery stores will be allowed to open tomorrow. Kayla Hounsel has more.
As the military moves in to help with much-needed snow removal and other needs, everyone in St. John's is doing whatever they can. People are helping their neighbors. We spoke with one resident who says it's difficult to know who's helping who at this point. Everyone is just shoveling. We also saw today a lineup of dump trucks waiting for their loads of snow so they could bring it here to St. John's Harbor to dump it. The city of St. John's has received special permission to dump snow here in the harbor. Usually there is a ban, but in this case, there is just so much of it, there's nowhere else to put it. And we are starting to see frustration with that increase. We witnessed an encounter today between a private snowplow driver and a motorist. The plow driver actually got out of his vehicle and started yelling at the motorist for being out on the road in this state of emergency. The motorist in turn rolled down his window and yelled back that he had to go to the hospital. The plow driver said that he didn't need to be out on the road, and so it went back and forth. And I think that really is an indication of the boiling over point here with this state of emergency now in its fourth day. People are running out of everything, really: food, supplies, medication. And so again, as the military moves in, everyone is hoping that they are going to bring with them much needed relief. Kayla Hounsel, CBC News, St. John's.
Canadians take it for granted that a 911 emergency call will get a swift response, but that didn't happen when an Ontario motorist frantically called to report a dangerous and erratic driver. Experts say the service that millions rely on is failing Canadians, and they are calling for an overhaul to the whole 911 system. Rosa Marcatelli explains.
All our 911 call takers are still busy at this time.
So busy, Sam Gill's emergency call was left on hold for 6 minutes.
911, pick up.
Despite clear standards that say 911 calls should be answered within the first 20 seconds.
Every second, I am thinking, oh my God, somebody's going to die.
911.
By the time an operator answered and police arrived, the driver had crashed into another snowbank and passed out behind the wheel with his vehicle still in drive, Gill says. His friend Paul Bambihere was in the passenger seat.
We are really concerned, and on the other side, we were feeling helpless.
Helena Shepard-Snyder couldn't reach 911 either when her husband was having a heart attack a few years ago. She got a recording saying the number was not in service and to call the operator, then had to convince the operator to call for her. She credits paramedics with saving her husband's life despite the delay.
Oh, I felt so helpless. I just felt like, where else can I go? What can I do?
911, do you need police, fire, and ambulance?
Canadians make an estimated 9 million calls to 911 every year, according to the CRTC. The system is outdated, underfunded, and in desperate need of an overhaul. The issues worse in some parts of the country than others, says this emergency call expert.
Until we have some form of political will that is willing to make these hard choices to put safety first, it's just not. I don't see it happening.
One of the biggest problems, she says, is 911 services across the country use 50-year-old technology, making it really difficult to locate anyone calling using one of these. In March, the CRTC set mandatory deadlines for improving 911 service, and part of that is upgrading that really old technology analog to digital. The deadline for that is June 2023. In Gill's case, the police force says when he called and needed help that night, it was swamped with 911 calls. In Shepard-Snyder's case, the municipality says next time she has an emergency, she has to call fire, ambulance, or police separately using 3 separate phone numbers. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
You are looking live at Markham and Ellesmere. Toronto police say a young man is dead after a shooting there this afternoon. It happened just before 4. Police say they received reports of gunshots and located a young male victim at the scene. He was rushed to a trauma center, but later died. Police say they have one person in custody. The homicide squad is now investigating. Peel Regional Police say the suspect wanted in connection with the death of a 28-year-old woman has been found dead. Police found the body of 36-year-old Rakesh Bhai Patel in Toronto Friday. They say his death is not being pursued as a criminal investigation. Patel was wanted on a Canada-wide warrant in connection with the death of his ex-wife, Hiral Patel. Investigators found her body near Nexus Avenue and Fogle Road in Brampton last Monday. Anyone with information related to this case is being asked to contact Peel Regional Police. A year after Asim Siddiqui was killed while crossing the street near Lawrence and Allen Road, his family held a vigil at the spot he died. They say it's not only important to make sure he's not forgotten, but also to send a message to the city that our streets need to be safer for pedestrians. Greg Ross has more.
I need to make my brother's death matter.
Shona Siddiqui is one of Asim Siddiqui's older sisters. She helped organize a daylight vigil at the spot her brother was killed after being hit by a dump truck last year.
I hope that we can all join in a minute's silence. The reason we're out here is to send the message that these pedestrian deaths, including my brother's, they're all very preventable.
Siddiqui worked near the Lawrence Allen Center, but on the day he died, he was heading downtown for a meeting. Siddiqui had just left the mall. He was on his way to the Lawrence West subway station. He walked up this sidewalk and attempted to cross at the intersection, but while in the crosswalk, he was hit by a dump truck making a right-hand turn.
It can happen to anybody, anywhere, and any time.
Jennifer Ferroni stopped to help Siddiqui after he was hit, covering him with a blanket and staying by his side during the final moments of his life.
I told him he wasn't alone, that I was with him.
The family is hoping that sharing stories like this will not only ensure Siddiqui is not forgotten, but also might help save lives.
This is a hostile intersection that does not account for your needs.
Jessica Speaker is a volunteer with the group Safe Streets Toronto. She says the city needs to do more to make the intersection at Lawrence and the Allen Expressway safer for pedestrians.
But because we have a subway station here and a busy shopping mall over here and a crosswalk that connects the two, we should definitely have some pedestrian design features in this intersection that would save lives.
Siddiqui's family says they have pushed the city to make changes, but so far the response has been minimal.
I called the city several times after my brother died, and I was so disappointed that they did absolutely nothing. Nothing, there's no change to this intersection.
They say they will continue to fight until the city does listen, because they believe those changes would bring at least some meaning to an otherwise senseless death. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Tax season is fast approaching, but for the city's homeless and low-income residents, they may not see the point of filing their tax return. But the Toronto Neighborhood Centres say they could be leaving much-needed money on the table. It's running a program that offers to file tax returns for free. In just 1 year, the program helped the city's most vulnerable get back nearly $6 million in rebates. Farmer Morelli explains.
That's Stormy.
Hi, Stormy. These days, Jan McCatchick passes the time by taking care of his neighbor's dog. A very different life from the one he used to lead. Where was this?
Cuba.
McCatchick used to travel, have a steady income, and worked as a long-distance truck driver. 7 years ago, that all changed when his left leg had to be amputated because of an infection.
It's financial. Now I live, What can I say? I still live.
Without a job or steady income, paying someone to file his taxes isn't an option anymore. He comes here to Lamp Community Health Centre, where volunteers do it for free. He says with the centre's help, he got back about $1,000 in tax rebates last year.
It's very helpful because, you can spend more money. Yeah. It's for life. I can buy a jacket or something like that,
It's been Lamp since, I believe, 1973.
Lamp has had a free tax clinic for low-income residents for decades, but in recent years, it got a boost from a United Way grant. The $50,000 a year donation is split between 5 community hubs to run the clinics.
We've had people that didn't realize that just because you don't have a taxable income that you can still get some money from doing your tax returns. And after doing their taxes, after 10 years of not doing them, suddenly they have this big check.
Many people, especially the homeless and those without an income, don't realize they're leaving money on the table.
Last year we served just over 2,100 people, and those people accessed in total $5.9 million.
But free tax clinics, ones that have staff that are specifically trained to file for low-income families, aren't common.
There's obviously a need, and so we would like to be able to layer on that support in the other tax clinics, because tax issues and money matters don't just happen during tax season.
The city funds some of the centers that offer tax clinics, but not the clinics directly. So they lack the funding and staff to expand the program more widely. But the people who use them recognize how valuable they are.
It's actually been surprising how many donations we actually get from some of these folks who are so thankful that they're willing to give just a little bit of the little that they have because they know how important the service is and they want it to keep going.
Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
After the break, the first phase of an extradition case that will be watched around the world. Monitoring bracelet firmly attached to her ankle, Huawei exec Meng Wanzhou appeared in court in Vancouver today. How Canada found itself at the center of an international legal battle next.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Meng Wanzhou waved to the crowd as she entered a Vancouver court today. It's the beginning of the Huawei CFO's extradition case. The U.S. wants Canada to send her to New York to face multiple fraud charges. Tanya Fletcher has more now on how Canada ended up in the middle of a battle between the two superpowers.
Do you have anything to say?
This was the moment Huawei's chief financial officer was shoved into the global spotlight, the moment she became the face of an international tug-of-war. It started at Vancouver International Airport in December 2018 when Meng Wanzhou was taken into custody, accused of committing fraud on behalf of Huawei, allegations she lied about a subsidiary's dealings with Iran to try to get around U.S. sanctions. Released on $10 million bail, Meng has been living under house arrest at this Vancouver mansion ever since. It's been a year of court appearances, each one drawing a media circus, often supporters and sometimes a smile.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
There's been particular scrutiny over Meng's appearance. She's gone from casual to designer, even flaunting her ankle monitoring bracelet, a possible turn in tactic by her legal team.
She's not running from the media anymore. She's not trying to cover cameras with her hand. She's coming out of her house in the morning, saying hello to the media, waving to everyone, and looking very nicely turned out while she's doing it.
And this week marks the most significant legal proceedings yet. A court hearing arguments over something called double criminality, essentially the bar for extradition. It means the alleged offense, in this case fraud, must be considered a crime in both Canada and the U.S.
It's a convoluted process. It's not usually. Usually we're looking at 2 days for an extradition hearing from beginning to end. Here, of course, it's stretched out and stretched out and stretched out because it is political and it is controversial.
Take the two Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, jailed in China after Meng's arrest. Widely seen as a retaliatory move, it makes Canada's actions now even more delicate.
The case of Meng is so sensitive, so volatile in China. By punching back in the nose, we're not helping this. We're actually tightening the noose. And it's not going to help the two Michaels. It's not going to help anything we want to do with China.
In the end, if Meng does end up being extradited to the U.S., she faces trial and potentially a long time in jail. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
It was supposed to be the next gold rush, so why are so many cannabis companies going under?
Companies are not profitable, and there's also no cash coming in for most companies on an investment basis.
Once flooded with cash, why some Canadian producers are going bankrupt. Coming up next.
It's going to go up, it's going to go down. You just hope it goes more up than down.
This is not a flash in the pan situation, you know, like the internet boom of '97 kind of thing.
You go back 100 and some years to the gold rush. The people who made the money were the people who sold the picks and the axes and the shovels and the pans, not so much the people who were scouting for gold.
There's so much hype behind it. At one point, you're going to have to start looking for which companies are going to be the good companies.
Lots of hype and a lot of cash. Many forecasted the cannabis biz to do nothing but make money. But many insiders say it's time for a bit of spring cleaning. It's been a financially challenging year for the cannabis industry. And as Philippe de Montigny tells us, many cash-strapped pot producers could be going bankrupt by the end of the year.
After all the hype and a disappointing 2019, cash in the cannabis sector is hard to come by. Greg Engel is in an unusual position, heading up a cannabis company competitors are looking to for help.
Certainly there's going to be additional insolvencies.
He's been approached by rival companies who are struggling, looking to sell off equipment and greenhouses at a discount.
Assets that are, distressed, companies that are challenged, they can't raise additional capital. They're looking for an exit for their investors. But in most cases, those are assets you don't want to take on.
The industry's been plagued with supply problems, ongoing stiff competition from the black market, and the resulting loss of enthusiasm from investors. Rishi Malkani is a cannabis industry expert and partner at Deloitte.
More than a dozen or so companies face some significant cash crunches in the next 6 to 12 months. There's a lot of trepidation, understandably, and I think it's going to be some time before the capital markets come back.
Even large players like Canopy Growth and Hexo are in the red, with losses deepening into the last quarter of 2019. But they're hoping for a turnaround as Ontario opens new retail stores and with edibles hitting the shelves.
Yes, it will take more stores, and I think the governments are learning along with us what worked, what didn't. The capital markets took a breath, retail investors pulled back from the industry, and that has really created a situation where companies are not profitable, and there's also no cash coming in.
What's more is that 3 major pod companies, Hexo, Canopy Growth, and Aurora, are also facing class action lawsuits in the U.S., accused of misleading investors or failing to disclose certain problems with their businesses. If approved, the suits could take months, if not years, to resolve and cost a lot of money. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Ottawa.
Premier Doug Ford was downtown today speaking at a conference with rural municipal leaders about the upcoming spring budget, and he ensured that there would not be a repeat of the budget last year.
And I've told my caucus and our ministers, no surprises. No surprises to municipalities. Just lay it on the line, get their input.
The PC government have started consultations to develop its second spending package that will be unveiled later this year. Ford's first budget caused a stir when it quietly made funding cuts to public health and childcare. Ford says this time around they will be reaching out to municipalities to ensure they are aware of measures coming in the budget. Toronto's latest employment numbers are out, and one big thing is clear: the city's tech industry is booming, but is that growth sustainable? City Hall reporter Lauren Pilley takes a closer look.
Opinions will start to permeate all areas of web development.
This coding boot camp at Juno College of Technology is packed with students, all hoping to tap into Toronto's thriving tech industry.
I'm just going to console log the API, and then we can look at the data.
For these two, it's about getting a foot in the door.
Majority of people here, like myself, are coming from different avenues in our lives. So I came from the finance industry.
No matter what industry, most companies need a website. So you can find work in all different fields that you have interest in.
While tech workers still make up just a small portion of the city's job market, the latest numbers show more and more people are flocking to these roles, from developers to designers to data analysts. As of 2019, there were more than 60,000 tech jobs in Toronto, in roughly 1,700 offices. That's around an 85% increase on both fronts in just 5 years.
that has come from both our encouragement of a very robust startup and scale-up, homegrown tech community, and our encouragement of multinational investment.
So we're going to have to see, I think, some more funding when it comes to the TTC, when it comes to healthcare, because more people, more need.
This tech expert says without careful city planning, the tech boom could become a bust.
You create a city where there's the haves and the have-nots. And what happens when the have-nots don't find a place here? They leave, they move.
Training programs like those at Juneau aim to make sure more people reap the benefits and don't get left behind.
If you're in a role that is not tech-based today, it's probably time to start thinking about how you can start to build those skills and gain some knowledge in those areas, because companies are making shifts. There's going to be a lot of workforce changes in the coming years, and it's probably time for everyone to start embracing this new world.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
York Regional Police hosted a graduation ceremony today to welcome 2 of its newest members.
York here is extremely focused. He works very meticulously with the things he does. He loves his ball on a string, and will do anything for it. That's the reward he gets for the good work he does. And yeah, he's been amazing so far.
York and his colleague Hux, seen here, are now police service dogs in York Region. Both German Shepherds earned their badges after successfully completing their basic canine training course. It focused on tracking, building and area searches, evidence location, obedience, and criminal apprehension. Officers also unveiled a new canine community partner wall at the ceremony. The wall recognizes community members and organizations who have generously donated money to purchase police service dogs, including Hux. Over the last 30 years, the canine unit has helped with more than 45,000 calls. And yes, Colette will come up with a story idea so you can get up to York and visit Hux and York, because I know you want to.
You know how my mind works, Dwight, don't you? Anything I could tie in with pets and animals, of course. And congratulations to those young graduates and to their handlers, too. That's just awesome to hear about that. Slowly improving. That's what's going to be happening for us with our temperatures. So getting closer to seasonal first, and then we're going to be moving above it. And also, midweek, lots of sun as high pressure is going to be pushing through our skies. But another messy weekend ahead of us. We do have that potential. This has been the trend every weekend. A system kind of comes through. It looks like some active weather potentially this weekend. So just keep an eye on things for your travel plans, and I'll keep updating you as the data comes in. Our average height this time of year is about -2.4, -2.5, let's say, and almost -11. Today's high unofficially -5.3, and look at that low, nearly -15. So even the temperatures now sitting at -6, but you factor in those northwesterly winds we've had through the day, it feels like -11, -13 for Hamilton and St. Catharines. And speaking of those northwesterly winds, yes, bringing a little bit of flurry or light snow activity off the lake, and at times those flurries could, quite scattered in nature, but make their way down into the GTA overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. But otherwise, it will be partly cloudy skies, then a little more cloud cover into the afternoon hours on Tuesday. But then that ridge of high pressure really arrives as we go into Wednesday, and that's when we're ensured of seeing more sunshine through midweek. It does change as we get towards Thursday, but Wednesday really looking good because the temperature will be coming up as well. Here you are with your overnight lows then, and just keeping in mind that it will feel like -15. So tomorrow morning, you still need the layers. We're not out of the woods yet with some of this cold air in place, but tomorrow afternoon climbing that much closer to being back at seasonal. -2 for Toronto, Hamilton -2, St. Catharines -1, but -3 for Markham, feeling like -8. And a look at the long-range forecast then, and those temperatures going above seasonal with sun Wednesday. Going to be one of the best days of the week. And then as we go towards next weekend, Friday night into Saturday, that's what I'm going to be watching very carefully for a rain, snow, perhaps mix. Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
Prince Harry has spoken publicly for the first time about his decision to become independent of the royal family. In a very personal speech last night, he seemed to place the blame on the British media and said he had no other option but to step away so he and his wife Meghan could seek a more peaceful life. Renee Filipponi has more now from London.
It was back to royal duties for Prince Harry following an emotional speech, making it clear this wasn't how he hoped everything would play out. Today, he attended the UK-African Summit on behalf of the Crown, where he met with leaders from a number of different African countries, as well as the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Now, the Sussexes' official roles don't end until the spring, and that's when they will stop using their royal titles and working on behalf of the Queen. At a charity event last night, Harry was candid about the difficulties in negotiating this agreement. And royal watchers say the couple were naive to think they could get a half-in, half-out deal, and that there is no compromising with the Queen.
Our hope was to continue serving the Queen, the Commonwealth, and my military associations, but without public funding. Unfortunately, that wasn't possible.
In the speech, Harry also attempted to clear up any misconceptions in the public about his decision being masterminded by Meghan, by emphasizing it's a decision he made and that he did not make it lightly. Reaction to how all of this is playing out is mixed.
Well, I think he would have tried his best to get what he could for him and his family. But yeah, ultimately, it's not him that gets to decide.
I think this is like a bit crazy that it's getting this much like publicity when there's like bigger things happening in the world. Like there might be a massive war, Australia's on fire, but we're talking about whether two people are leaving a monarch.
I think it will be a loss. Prince Harry's always been an advocate. He's a great statesman. It's very sad because this is the life he grew up in.
There are still a lot of unanswered questions about what exactly the Sussexes will do, how they will be financially independent, and who will foot the security bill. But it's important to note the Queen has left the door open and will review the new agreement in a year's time. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
Coming up next, fighting gun control legislation with a show of force.
We will not be ruled! We will not be ruled!
And I have a right to protect myself. You have. You don't have to own a gun. That's a personal choice. But in this country, if you're a citizen, if you're born here, you're allowed to protect yourself.
Decked to the nines with 9mm handguns and AR-15s, thousands are in Richmond, Virginia for a pro-gun rally. We'll take you there after the break. The already difficult process of repatriating the remains of some Canadian victims from Iran has become more complicated. Today, Iran said it does not recognize the dual citizenship of those killed abroad in the downed Ukrainian plane.
اعلام کردیم که به حال این عزیزانی که از دست رفتن
Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson said, according to their laws, those individuals are considered Iranian only. 176 people were killed when flight PS752 was accidentally shot down. 57 of them were Canadian, but it's not clear how many of them had dual citizenship. Ottawa says Iran had promised the wishes of the families would be respected regarding the victims' remains. Meanwhile, Ukraine and Canada continue to urge Iran to hand over the black boxes for analysis. Over the weekend, Iranian officials denied earlier reports it would give them to Ukraine. Thousands of gun rights activists crowded the streets of Richmond, Virginia today to protest the state's plan to pass new gun control legislation. Authorities were concerned about white supremacist groups and militias attending, so they took steps to ensure the rally wouldn't turn violent. Susan Ormiston was there.
This is a sign of things to come in this election year in the United States. This is a pro-gun rally in Richmond, Virginia. Thousands of people came with their weapons to the streets of the Capitol to protest proposed new laws to restrict gun ownership. They say it's their Second Amendment and they don't want to see any restrictions on guns. There was a heavy police presence. The governor and many people were worried about violence infiltrating this protest. It was peaceful. A few pro-Trump activists met anti-Trump activists, and there was a bit of a confrontation, but no violence at all. People are allowed to carry their guns here in Virginia, and they did here on the streets today, but they were banned from the Capitol while the protest was going on.
Hell no. I think we shouldn't have any restriction.
What about background checks?
I don't like that.
Why?
I think that it says it's a right to have a gun. I think they shouldn't be having, they want to have more extensive background checks. We have enough of them already.
Gun control shaping up to be an election issue in 2020. Susan Ormiston, CBC News in Richmond, Virginia.
Tomorrow will mark yet another historic moment in America as the opening arguments in the impeachment trial of President Donald Trump gets underway in the Senate. Trump will be only the fourth of 45 American presidents to face the possibility of being ousted by impeachment. He's charged with abusing the powers of his office by asking Ukraine to investigate his Democratic rival, Joe Biden. He's also charged with obstructing a congressional inquiry into his conduct. Now, today, Trump's legal team said he did nothing wrong. They are calling the impeachment case against him a, quote, dangerous perversion of the Constitution. Trump won't be in Washington for the start of the trial. He's leaving for Switzerland tonight for the annual World Economic Forum. After the break, history is made at the Screen Actor Guild Awards.
The story is about coexistence and how we can all live together.
Thank you. Parasite becomes the first foreign language film to ever take top prize. That and more big moments from last night's gala after the break.
There are two key things that differentiate us from actual hosts.
That's true. Number one, we will not be reappearing throughout the show.
And two, we aren't being paid.
That's also true. Although SAG actually offered me an internship credit and a free flu shot, so...
Oh, that's wonderful,
yes,
son.
Very generous.
Schitt's Creek stars Eugene and Dan Levy introducing last night's Screen Actors Guild Awards. It's put on by the union representing Hollywood film and TV actors. This year, for the first time ever, its big honor went to a foreign language film. The South Korean thriller Parasite won the Best Film Ensemble prize. Yelena Adzik joins us with more now. A lot of hardware being handed out at this time of year. Yep. So how does this award show stack up against the others we've seen recently?
Well, one thing we know for sure is that it has the worst acronym. SAG and Hollywood, not so much. I just had to kind of get that out there. But I think the key here is that when you talk about a film like Parasite, which you just mentioned there, Dwight, wow, that is a big, big win. So you have to know that for the Screen Actors Guild, the Best Ensemble, that is the biggie award, right? That's like Best Pick at the Oscars. And it is worth noting that the winners of Best Ensemble have gone on to receive the Best Picture Oscar 11 times in the past 24 years. So that's pretty high as far as a prediction. So let me give you a listen right now to one of the cast members. They spoke a lot in Korean, but she said something in English that was really a reference to the storyline, because a lot of people, if you haven't seen Parasite yet, it's about the haves and have-nots. It gets dark, it also gets funny, but then it gets lighter. And have a listen to what she has to say.
Although Parasite, the title is Parasite, I think the story is about coexistence and how we can all live together.
Yeah, thank you.
Big moment for that particular movie and the cast.
I know our colleague, Eli Glasner, film reviewer, he loves that film.
Loved it,
He's been telling us to go see it.
Yes.
Any surprises in the big acting categories?
Okay, so no surprise, I think, with the winner as far as Renee Zellweger, because Judy, great performance, so a lot of people were kind of expecting that. But then you have a winner that I think a lot of people were surprised by, and that is Jennifer Aniston. She ended up taking an award, and this is for, she was named Best Actress in a Drama Series for The Morning Show. The Morning Show, a lot of people talking about that because, of course, she had this touching moment, I mean literally touching, with Brad Pitt backstage, because he ended up taking Best Supporting Actor for his role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Okay, so there's a bit of a touching moment there. In the meantime, when she got up on stage, she wanted to address her character. It kind of goes to these deep, dark places. People who haven't seen The Morning Show yet, that really has to do with Me Too and that era. So have a listen to what Jennifer Aniston had to say up on stage.
Boy, did we get to dive deep into our own experiences and our own history and really be able to breathe life into these extraordinary characters. And I mean, who knew that emotional breakdowns felt that good?
So now we're not talking about her hair anymore.
No.
We're talking about some good performances.
Getting back together? No? Okay,
Oh,
we won't go there. I'm so sorry. All right, what about the men who took the big prizes?
Yeah, okay, so Peter Dinklage was up there for Game of Thrones on the TV side of things. Also worth noting, Sam Rockwell was up there for Fosse. I always love Sam Rockwell and everything he's in. Such a great actor. And then this one to share with you, Joaquin Phoenix. The man has been, you know, on the scene, off the scene, some bizarre behavior. Well, he's back in fine form. He gets up on stage, and Joaquin Phoenix ends up really addressing every single other person in his category, saying that they should have won. He gives some props to Leonardo DiCaprio, and he also addresses somebody who has passed away. Okay, so let me give you a listen now, as I set this up by saying that he's talking about the early days of auditioning in Hollywood. Have a listen.
You'd always lose to this one kid. And no actor would ever say his name because it was like too much. But every casting director would whisper in there, "It's Leonardo, it's Leonardo." Who is this Leonardo? Really, I'm standing here on the shoulders of my favorite actor, Heath Ledger. So thank you and good night.
Yeah, so it was a touching moment at the Screen Actors Guild Awards.
Thank you, Yelena.
See you soon, Dwight.
Which Toronto Raptor is this spinning snowman supposed to be? The answer next. It's not a regular snowman, but a snow siakam. A Waterloo man made the 7-foot snow sculpture as a tribute to Spicy P. Matt Morris posted this on social media saying that since Siakam has an amazing spin move, he made the sculpture spin too.
I developed a rotating platform. It's basically 2 slabs of plywood with 16 casters upside down in between them. And that's what holds up the weight. Now, Pascal's about 230 pounds, but this Pascal weighs significantly more.
Siakam saw the sculpture on Twitter and retweeted the video saying that it was dope, whether he's on the court or on a snowbank. You know, our Spicy P is an all-star. I really like that.
Yeah, I didn't quite get it first, but then once I saw it, yeah, I see it. Oh, yeah.
We get pretty creative with our snow sculptures around this town.
The work that went into that, boy, oh boy.
And there's a lot of snow to work with.
And a lot of snow to shovel. There was some work to be done. And now we are looking at a trend where it's going to take a little time, but we're actually going to be going in a milder direction. So I say a bit of time. We're not really feeling it overnight tonight when we're talking about a low of -11, feeling like -15, partly cloudy skies, maybe a few flurries just because of those northwesterly winds coming across Lake Huron. But otherwise, tomorrow we'll start off with some sunshine, kind of a mix, and then getting more cloud cover into the afternoon. -2 for the high, so back to seasonal, but feeling like -8. And then we go into that pattern. So Wednesday, we have sunshine and a temperature above freezing. I think it's going to be the best day of the week.
Melt some of that stuff away. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has your next local news tonight at 11 after the National. Have a good night, everybody.